Imagine if the story of complex civilization in the Americas did not unfold in the familiar empires of later eras. Imagine if long before the Maya raised their pyramids, long before the Aztecs built their sprawling cities, another society already held the seeds of monumental achievement, a foundational culture whose genius defied the expectations of its time. This was the Olmec civilization, and if their influence shaped the very foundations of Mesoamerica, then our understanding of early human ingenuity is not complete, but only a continuation of a story much older, much more enigmatic. Stay with this thought, for it changes everything about how we perceive the dawn of advanced societies in the New World. For generations, our textbooks spoke of grand civilizations rising in classical Greece or ancient Egypt. The Americas, we were told, saw their first great powers much later, with the Maya, the Inca, or the Aztec. But beneath these accepted narratives, there has always been something more. The Olmecs have never quite looked like the others. They were not just early farmers. They were architects of an entire cultural landscape, a mother culture from which so much else in Mesoamerica would spring. Their very existence, emerging around 1500 BCE, represents a profound shift in the human story, a moment when settled life transformed into something complex, organized, and truly astonishing. This sudden emergence of sophistication, materializing seemingly from the dense, challenging lowlands of the Gulf Coast, is one of the most compelling mysteries of ancient history. How did such a developed society simply appear, fully formed, with monumental art, intricate social structures, and what appears to be a sophisticated understanding of their world, centuries before similar achievements are typically dated? It is not just a point in time, it is a question mark across the timeline of human development. Their civilization did not follow the slow, gradual ascent expected from nascent societies. Instead, it bursts forth with an almost inexplicable maturity, as if millennia of prior development were compressed into a mere blink of an eye. This rapid flowering, this enigmatic leap from dispersed village life to organized power, has always challenged the conventional understanding of how and when complex societies begin. The stage for this astonishing rise was the Gulf Coast lowlands of what is now Mexico, a region that, at first glance, seems utterly inhospitable to the birth of civilization. It is a land of sweltering humidity, dense tropical forests, meandering rivers, and seasonal floods that once transformed vast tracts into marshy deltas. This geographical context makes the Olmec achievement even more extraordinary. It was not a gentle, easily arable river valley like the Nile or Mesopotamia. It was a realm of constant environmental challenge, where human survival demanded immense ingenuity and unyielding labor. Yet, it was precisely in this challenging, yet fertile cradle that the Olmecs thrived. The rich alluvial soils deposited by the powerful rivers offered bounty for agriculture once tamed. The network of waterways provided both sustenance and crucial routes for communication and trade. It was a land of abundant resources, but ones that required mastery and collective effort to harness. Their ability to not only survive but to flourish and build lasting monuments in such a demanding environment speaks volumes about their organizational prowess and resilience. They did not simply adapt, they transformed their world. The first profound hints of this civilization's advanced capabilities began to emerge in the mid-19th century, sparking astonishment that echoed through the archaeological world. The initial discoveries were accidental, stumbled upon by farmers and explorers rather than systematic archaeological expeditions. In 1862 at Tresopotes, a colossal stone head, the first ever found, was unearthed, weighing several tons and displaying features unlike anything previously known in Mesoamerica. It was dismissed by many at the time as an anomaly, a curious boulder, but the seeds of discovery had been sown. Decades later, dedicated excavations at sites like San Lorenzo and La Venta began to peel back the layers of earth, revealing an entire forgotten world. The sheer scale and artistry of what was found there, monumental altars, intricate jade carvings, sophisticated drainage systems, and more colossal heads caused a seismic shift in understanding. These were not the works of simple villagers. They were the products of a highly organized, deeply artistic, and remarkably advanced people. The initial reaction was one of disbelief, then awe, as archaeologists grappled with the implications of a civilization so sophisticated, yet so ancient, and so utterly unknown. What truly defied conventional understanding was not just the existence of these ancient sites, but the subtle yet profound hints of advanced capabilities embedded within their creations. The precision of their stonework, particularly in carving extremely hard materials with seemingly primitive tools, raised immediate questions. How did they achieve such smooth surfaces and intricate details? The scale of their monumental constructions, the sheer effort required to transport and manipulate multi-ton boulders across difficult terrain, pointed to engineering and logistical skills that seemed out of place for a society so early in its development. There were subtle clues of a deep astronomical awareness, of precise architectural alignments, and of systems for organizing vast labor forces that went far beyond what was thought possible for early village cultures. These were not merely decorative elements. They were manifestations of a foundational knowledge, a command over materials and principles that suggested a profound grasp of their environment and the properties within it. These were the first whispers of a technological sophistication that we still, in many ways, struggle to fully comprehend. And so the enduring mystery surrounding the Olmecs persists. Where did this sudden sophistication come from? What were the origins of their foundational skills, their mastery of stone, their complex artistic symbolism, and their profound organizational capacity? Was their rise a unique, isolated evolutionary leap, or did they draw upon even earlier, still undiscovered influences? The very nature of their foundational knowledge, whether it was empirical, intuitive, or perhaps even guided by a worldview that integrated science and spirituality in ways we no longer access, remains one of the great unanswered questions of ancient American history. They stand as a silent testament to an early human ingenuity that forces us to look beyond our preconceived notions of progress. The Olmecs are not just America's first civilization. They are a timeless riddle, a shadow of giants whose foundational skills continue to confound and fascinate us, pointing to a depth of human potential that we are only just beginning to acknowledge. The initial echoes of Olmec presence in the challenging lowlands hinted at something extraordinary. But how did these early groups, seemingly overnight, forge the complex structures of a true civilization? The answer lies in a detailed timeline of their florescence, a period stretching from roughly 1500 to 400 BCE, when their influence solidified and their world took shape. It was a transformation from scattered communities to a unified power, a testament to an organizing intelligence that would echo across Mesoamerica for millennia. The story of their rise can be traced through the major Olmec heartland sites, each revealing a chapter in their ascendancy. From approximately 1500 to 1200 BCE, the earliest phase, we see the foundations being laid. Small agricultural villages began to coalesce, driven by a burgeoning ability to cultivate the land. Then came the era of San Lorenzo from around 1200 to 900 BCE, which became the first great Olmec capital. It was a site of monumental ambition where vast amounts of earth were moved to create platforms and plazas, and the first colossal stone heads were carved. This was a time of consolidation, of powerful rulers asserting control, and of an emerging social order that would facilitate their grand endeavors. Following the mysterious decline and abandonment of San Lorenzo, the focus shifted eastward to Leventa, which flourished from roughly 900 to 400 BCE. Leventa represents the pinnacle of Olmec power and artistic expression, a ceremonial complex built on an island in the middle of a swamp. Its meticulous layout and vast constructions speak to an even more refined understanding of planning and resource management. But even as La Venta reached its zenith, the seeds of change were already being sown, leading to a gradual transition that saw the Olmec world recede, leaving behind an indelible cultural blueprint. This gradual yet profound unfolding of Olmec society was underpinned by an intricate social hierarchy. It was not a flat, egalitarian world, but a stratified one where power and responsibility were carefully distributed. At the apex stood the rulers, figures often imbued with divine authority, believed to be intermediaries between the human and spiritual realms. Their portraits, perhaps etched into the very stone of the colossal heads, served as enduring symbols of their power. These rulers would have commanded vast resources, organizing the labor for monumental projects, overseeing trade, and leading their people in war and ritual. Beneath the rulers were the powerful priests, whose role was no less critical. They were the keepers of sacred knowledge, the interpreters of celestial cycles, and the orchestrators of complex religious ceremonies. Their understanding of the cosmos, of natural forces, and of ritual practices would have granted them immense influence over daily life. It was through the priests that the collective spiritual aspirations of the Olmecs were channeled, maintaining the delicate balance between the human world and the powerful unseen forces. A vital component of this society were the skilled artisans, the sculptors, potters, jade carvers, and architects whose creations define the Olmec legacy. Their expertise was not merely craft. It was a form of technological mastery, allowing them to transform raw materials into objects of immense beauty and symbolic significance. From the precise shaping of basalt to the intricate working of jade, these individuals possessed knowledge and techniques that often defy our modern assumptions about early civilizations. Their specialized skills were essential for manifesting the visions of the ruling elite and the spiritual needs of the community, creating the monumental art and structures that still awe us today. At the base of this intricate pyramid were the vast majority of the population, the agricultural laborers. Their tireless efforts fueled the entire civilization. It was their hands that tilled the rich, fertile soil of the Gulf Coast lowlands, producing the surplus necessary to sustain the rulers, priests, and artisans. Without a stable and abundant food supply, the grand Olmec centers could never have thrived, and the monumental achievements would have remained impossible. The pivotal advancement that enabled this flourishing society was a mastery of early agricultural practices, particularly the cultivation of maize. This humble crop, transformed through generations of careful selection and farming techniques, became the bedrock of the Olmec diet and economy. The rich alluvial soils of the Gulf Coast, combined with an understanding of seasonal flooding and sophisticated water management, allowed for intensive maize cultivation. This wasn't merely subsistence farming. It was an organized, large-scale enterprise that consistently yielded enough food to support a growing populace, freeing a significant portion of the community to specialize in other crucial roles. The constant production of maize surplus meant that rulers could feed armies of laborers for construction projects, and priests could dedicate their time to ritual and astronomical observation, effectively underwriting the entire enterprise of Olmec civilization. With this agricultural abundance and a hierarchical structure to manage it, the Olmecs established significant ritual centers that served as focal points of power and community. These were not just places of worship, but vibrant hubs where political, economic, and spiritual life converged. San Lorenzo, for instance, was transformed into an elevated plateau, a massive earthen construction that dominated the landscape. Here, monumental basalt sculptures, plazas, and elite residences articulated a clear separation between the sacred and the mundane, and between the rulers and the ruled. La Venta, a later capital, stands as an even more striking example of sophisticated early urban planning. Built on a low island amidst the wetlands, its layout reveals a deliberate axial orientation, a grand central pyramid, and symmetrical mounds flanking vast plazas. This was no accidental arrangement of buildings, but a precisely engineered sacred landscape, carefully designed to reflect Olmec cosmology. Massive offerings buried deep beneath the earth also suggest an underlying order and a profound connection to the sacred geography of the site. Such an undertaking required not just immense labor, but a precise vision, a detailed blueprint, and the organizational capacity to execute it over generations. It suggests a society that understood concepts of civic space, monumental architecture, and the symbolic power of design long before such ideas are commonly attributed to ancient American cultures. Beyond their heartland, the Olmec influence extended far and wide through extensive trade networks. These networks were the arteries of their expanding world, connecting the Olmecs to distant regions across Mesoamerica. They exchanged goods like obsidian, a volcanic glass prized for its sharp edges, critical for tools and ritual objects. Shells from the Pacific and Atlantic coasts were transformed into ornaments and ritual items, their exotic origins adding to their value. Finely crafted pottery, some bearing distinctive Olmec motifs, also traveled great distances, testament to their widespread cultural appeal. But this trade was more than just an exchange of raw materials and finished goods. It was a conduit for the transmission of ideas, beliefs, and artistic styles. As Olmec iconography and objects moved through these networks, they carried with them the seeds of what would become a pan-Mesoamerican cultural grammar. The presence of Olmec-style artifacts in distant sites confirms not just economic ties, but a deep cultural resonance that shaped subsequent civilizations. These networks suggest a remarkable degree of logistical organization, a knowledge of distant territories, and an ability to maintain complex relationships across diverse communities. Central to this cultural spread was a shared and distinctive iconography. The jaguar motif, above all others, stands as the quintessential Olmec symbol. It appears ubiquitously in their art, from monumental sculptures to intricately carved jade celts. More than just an animal, the jaguar represented raw power, ferocity, and the sacred connection between the earthly and underworld realms. It was a potent symbol of leadership and supernatural authority, often depicted as a snarling, anthropomorphic being, a fusion of human and feline traits. This shared symbolism would have been understood across a wide geographical area, acting as a visual language of power and belief. Equally compelling, and perhaps more enigmatic, is the recurring cleft head symbolism. This distinctive feature, often depicted as a deep V-shaped indentation in the top of heads, whether human, jaguar, or composite figures, is seen across much of Olmec art. Its precise meaning remains debated, but it is often interpreted as a symbolic opening, perhaps representing a birth canal from which maize or life itself emerges, or a portal to the spirit world. It could also symbolize the fontanelle of infants, linking the Olmecs to ideas of primordial creation or the vulnerability of new life. Whatever its precise interpretation, its pervasive presence speaks to a deeply held, foundational belief, one that shaped their artistic expression and, by extension, their worldview. These artistic and symbolic expressions were inextricably linked to their profound religious beliefs and ritual practices. For the Olmecs, the world was alive with powerful, often dangerous spiritual forces, and maintaining harmony with them was paramount. Evidence for elaborate religious practices abounds. Votive caches, carefully arranged deposits of precious and symbolic items, have been unearthed at sites like La Venta. These caches, often containing jade celts, figurines and other offerings, were not simply burials. They were deliberate acts of reverence, intended to honor deities, solidify community bonds, or sanctify architectural constructions. Their meticulous placement and contents reveal a highly structured ceremonial life, one where every object held symbolic weight. Among the most striking insights into Olmec ritual is the evidence for bloodletting. While not as extensively depicted as in later Mesoamerican cultures, certain Olmec artifacts, such as jade perforators and iconography showing individuals piercing their bodies, suggest that this practice was part of their ceremonial repertoire. Bloodletting was a common ritual across ancient Mesoamerica, believed to be a sacred act of sacrifice, releasing vital energy and allowing communication with the gods. It was a way to nourish the deities, to atone, or to consecrate important events, binding the community together through shared sacrifice. The Olmecs built a world from the rich, yet challenging, Gulf Coast landscape. They cultivated their sustenance from the earth, organized their society with clear purpose, and infused their existence with a profound spiritual dimension. Their cities were expressions of their cosmology, their art a language of their beliefs, and their rituals a way to navigate a universe teeming with power. They were not just a collection of villages, but a society with a clear vision, a powerful elite, and a sophisticated understanding of how to harness both human labor and natural resources. This was the true birth of a Mesoamerican power, a complex civilization that even in its fluorescence contained the seeds of mysteries that we are still trying to unravel. The intricate networks of power, belief, and daily life that defined the Olmec world found their most arresting, and perhaps most perplexing, expression in monumental stone. For centuries, the dense jungles of Mexico's Gulf Coast held a secret, buried beneath layers of earth and time, a testament to an unparalleled early civilization waiting for human eyes to once again perceive its grandeur. This secret would forever alter our understanding of ancient America, revealing a people whose capabilities still defy simple explanation. The first hint of this colossal artistry emerged not from a grand expedition, but from a chance discovery. In 1862, a farmer in Tres Zapotes unearthed what he believed to be a massive iron kettle, half submerged in the soil. What he had stumbled upon, however, was far more extraordinary. A gargantuan stone head, meticulously carved from unyielding basalt, its features gazing silently from beneath a heavy, helmet-like cap. Its discovery was a shock, a sudden, undeniable presence that demanded attention. It was too large, too refined, too inexplicable for the conventional wisdom of the time regarding early Mesoamerican societies. Archaeologists, captivated by this lone giant, soon began to understand it was not an isolated marvel. Decades later, more of these silent sentinels would emerge, revealing the full scope of an ancient mystery. At San Lorenzo, archaeologists uncovered an astonishing array of 10 colossal heads, each distinct, each radiating an aura of power and individuality. Then at La Venta, 4 more were found, equally imposing, equally enigmatic. These were not mere carvings. They were portraits frozen in time, bearing witness to a society capable of feats that seem almost impossible for their era. The initial reactions were a mixture of awe and profound bewilderment. Who were these people? What technology did they possess to create such immense sculptures? And what message, lost to millennia, did these faces convey? The very existence of these heads raised questions that continue to echo through the halls of modern archaeology. They were, and remain, an immediate challenge to our preconceptions of early human ingenuity. The source of these monumental artworks only deepens the enigma. Geologists have confirmed that the basalt used for all 17 known colossal heads originated exclusively from the Tuxtla Mountains. This range, a chain of volcanic peaks, lies roughly 60 to 100 miles, 100 to 160 kilometers, away from the major Olmec centers of San Lorenzo and La Venta. This wasn't merely sourcing local stone. It was an undertaking of epic proportions, requiring the movement of massive geological formations across vast distances through some of the most challenging terrain imaginable. The Tuxtla Mountains are rugged and forested, traversed by rivers and seasonal swamps. There were no roads, no wheeled vehicles, No beasts of burden in ancient Mesoamerica. How, then, did the Olmecs transport these behemoths? The question looms large, a testament to a lost mastery of logistics and engineering. To fully grasp the scale of this challenge, one must consider the sheer weight of these basalt boulders. The largest of the colossal heads, San Lorenzo Colossal Head 1, stands nearly 10 feet, 3 meters, tall and weighs an estimated 25 to 40 tons. 40 tons is the equivalent of 8 large African elephants or a modern semi-truck fully loaded. Imagine moving such a mass not just across a few yards, but across dozens of miles through dense tropical lowlands. The logistical puzzle is almost unfathomable. It demands a level of coordination, planning, and sustained physical effort that speaks volumes about the Olmec social structure and leadership, hinting at an almost obsessive dedication to these sacred objects. Scientists and engineers have spent decades proposing methods for this seemingly impossible transportation. The most widely accepted theories involve massive human labor. Picture hundreds, perhaps thousands of individuals engaged in the arduous task. Logs would have been used as rollers placed beneath the stone, and ropes woven from strong plant fibers would have been pulled by sheer human muscle. This would have required leveling paths through the jungle, building temporary bridges over rivers, and constructing ramps to navigate changes in elevation. During the wet season, rafts might have been employed to float the heads along rivers and through flooded areas, harnessing the power of water to alleviate some of the strain. Yet, even with these ingenious methods, the energy expenditure and the precision required for such an operation are staggering. It implies an organizational capacity far beyond what we typically attribute to societies of this age, pushing the very limits of what human will and rudimentary technology could achieve. And still, despite the detailed reconstructions and experimental archaeology, a subtle question persists. Could there have been more to their methods than we currently understand? Was there an efficiency, a technique, a leveraging of natural forces that remains just beyond our grasp? Once the basalt boulders reached their destination, the next marvel began, the carving itself. Basalt is an igneous rock, incredibly hard and dense, formed from volcanic lava. Shaping such a material with only stone tools is an extraordinary feat of craftsmanship and patience. The Olmecs lacked metal tools of any kind. Their sculptors would have relied on even harder stones, such as jadeite, chert, or hematite, used as hammers, chisels, and abrasive grinding agents. The process would have been agonizingly slow, requiring sustained, meticulous effort to achieve the smooth surfaces, the subtle curves of the lips, the intricate details of the helmet, and the penetrating gaze of the eyes. Olmec artisans must have possessed an almost superhuman dedication and a profound understanding of their materials. This wasn't simply chipping away stone. It was an act of artistic precision on an industrial scale, a testament to a lost skill that allowed them to transform raw geology into living forms. The results are faces that are both powerfully realistic and deeply stylized, conveying a sense of authority and individuality. The very act of creating these heads demands a rethinking of what primitive truly means when applied to ancient cultures. The identities of the figures represented by the colossal heads remain a subject of intense speculation. Each head bears unique facial features, suggesting they are portraits of specific individuals rather than generic representations. The strong, often fleshy faces, broad noses, and full lips are consistent with the physical characteristics of indigenous peoples of the region. The elaborate headgear, resembling protective helmets, has led some scholars to suggest they depict powerful rulers, perhaps even deified kings or priest kings who held sway over the Olmec realm. These would have been the individuals whose authority commanded the immense resources and labor required for such projects. The sheer scale of the heads would have made them potent symbols of their leaders' power, visible to all and reinforcing the social hierarchy. Other theories propose that the heads might represent revered ball players, heroes of the Mesoamerican ball game, a ritualistic sport deeply significant to ancient cultures. The helmets could indeed be protective gear, and the solemn expressions might reflect the intense, often life-or-death nature of the game. Regardless of the exact identity, the ritualistic significance of these sculptures is undeniable. They were not merely art. They were statements of power, devotion, and perhaps a connection to the divine. They were designed to inspire awe, fear, and reverence, projecting the authority of the Olmec elite across time and space. Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of the colossal heads is their mysterious defacement or deliberate burial. Several of the heads show signs of mutilation. Eyes or noses were sometimes chipped away, or deep grooves carved into the faces. Many of the heads were found purposefully buried, sometimes even arranged in rows beneath the earth. This was not the work of later conquerors seeking to erase a previous culture, as no evidence of such conflict exists for the Olmec sites. Instead, archaeologists interpret this as a deliberate act carried out by the Olmecs themselves, a ritualistic decommissioning. Why would they create such magnificent works only to ritually kill or bury them? One theory suggests that when a ruler died, their portrait head was ritually defaced or interred as part of a funerary rite, symbolizing the end of their reign and the transition of power. This act would have been a profound cultural statement, reflecting complex beliefs about death, succession, and the enduring power of the ruling dynasty. It speaks to a deep, perhaps unsettling reverence for these objects, where their power was so great that their active presence needed to be contained or transformed once their purpose was served. The intentional destruction or concealment of such significant works adds another layer to the enigma, underscoring the spiritual depth and ritualistic precision of Olmec society. The profound implications of the colossal heads on our understanding of Olmec capabilities are immense. Their monumental scale demonstrates an advanced understanding of logistics, resource management, and social organization. To conceive, plan, and execute such projects required a central authority capable of mobilizing and sustaining vast numbers of laborers, artisans, and planners for extended periods. This points to a highly structured society with sophisticated governance, capable of monumental civil engineering. Their artistic precision, achieved with rudimentary tools on incredibly hard material, reveals a mastery of stone carving that is truly a technological marvel. It forces us to reconsider the limitations we often place on ancient societies that lacked metal. The Olmecs did not merely carve, they sculpted with a skill that rivaled, and in some ways surpassed, later cultures equipped with more advanced tools. These heads are not isolated anomalies. They are the most visible manifestations of a civilization that possessed a deep knowledge of their environment, an unmatched artistic vision, and an organizational genius that allowed them to literally move mountains and make them speak. They stand as unyielding proof that the Olmecs were not merely America's first civilization, but a culture whose technological and artistic achievements compel us to look beyond conventional explanations, pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible in the ancient world. They are the faces of the forgotten, and their silence screams volumes about a people we are only just beginning to truly comprehend. The colossal heads stand as undeniable proof of Olmec ingenuity in manipulating massive stone. But their mastery was not limited to brute force and monumental sculpture. For deep within the soil of their ancient ceremonial centers, archaeologists have unearthed even more subtle, yet equally astonishing evidence of a people who understood forces we still struggle to fully grasp. This is where the Olmec story truly begins to challenge our conventional notions of ancient technology, moving from the visible marvels to the unseen powers they seem to command. One of the most startling discoveries came from San Lorenzo, a site already renowned for its monumental achievements. Here, among the remnants of everyday life, archaeologists found polished bars of hematite and magnetite. These were not mere decorative stones. They possessed an inherent invisible property, magnetism. Specifically, one artifact, dubbed the Olmec compass, was a fragment of highly polished lodestone, a naturally magnetized form of magnetite. When suspended, this fragment consistently oriented itself along a north-south axis. This simple fact opened a profound window into an aspect of Olmec knowledge that defies easy explanation. The scientific exploration of these magnetic properties reveals an astonishing depth of observation. Certain iron ores, like hematite and magnetite, contain a natural magnetism due to their mineral structure. What the Olmecs achieved was not just finding these rocks, but identifying their magnetic qualities, then carefully shaping and polishing them. This process itself is a delicate one. Too much heat or heavy impact can demagnetize the stone. Their artifacts show a meticulous care that suggests a purposeful understanding of the material's inherent power. They had to intuitively grasp that these stones held a stable, directional force within them. How the Olmecs identified and utilized these magnetic properties is a subject of intense debate. Did they simply observe small magnetic rocks aligning themselves? Did they experiment with different stones until they found those that moved on their own? The very concept of harnessing an invisible force for practical or ritualistic ends suggests a mind that moved beyond simple observation. For a society that existed more than 3 millennia ago, without any known understanding of electromagnetism, this represents an extraordinary leap of intuition and empirical knowledge. The hypothesized uses of this mastery of magnetism extend into both the practical and the profound. As directional instruments, these lodestone bars could have served as early compasses. In a landscape often shrouded in mist or dense jungle, such a tool would have been invaluable for long-distance travel, guiding merchants along trade routes that stretched across Mesoamerica. It could also have been essential for navigating at night or under cloudy skies, providing a consistent reference point when stars were obscured. Beyond mere travel, these magnetic instruments may have played a critical role in astronomical alignment. For a people who deeply integrated celestial observations into their urban planning and ceremonial architecture, a reliable method for determining true north would have been indispensable for orienting their massive earthworks and structures with cosmic precision. But the uses likely extended beyond the purely utilitarian. Given the Olmec's deeply spiritual worldview, it is entirely possible that magnetism was perceived as a mystical force, a manifestation of unseen powers connecting the earth to the cosmos. Lodestone could have been used in divination rituals, in sacred ceremonies to align individuals or spaces with cosmic energies, or as powerful amulets for protection or spiritual guidance. The Olmec compass from San Lorenzo, for instance, was found in a ritual context, suggesting its significance transcended a simple navigational tool. It might have been a sacred object, a medium through which priests connected with the invisible currents of the world. Yet, magnetism was not their only triumph over challenging materials. Perhaps even more remarkable was their extraordinary mastery of jade working. Jade, a term encompassing both jadeite and nephrite, is one of the hardest stones known, second only to diamond and corundum. It is notoriously difficult to carve, grind, and polish, and the Olmecs did this without metal tools. Their most exquisite jade artifacts, intricately carved figurines, masks, axes, and pendants, showcase an artistic and technical precision that continues to astonish modern artisans. The techniques employed for carving, grinding, and polishing these intricate jade artifacts must have been incredibly sophisticated and labor-intensive. With no metal tools capable of cutting jade, the Olmecs would have relied exclusively on abrasive techniques. This involved using harder stones, such as quartz sand or chert flakes, in combination with water to slowly grind away the jade. Drilling holes would have required rotating spindle drills, likely with hardened reed tips and abrasive sand, to painstakingly bore through the dense material. The intricate details of their carvings, often featuring delicate facial features, intricate iconography, or complex interlocking designs, point to an unimaginable patience and a highly refined motor skill. Achieving such a high degree of finish a lustrous polish that brings out the deep greens and blues of the jade, would have involved a painstaking multi-stage process. Fine abrasives, perhaps even jade dust itself, would have been applied with leather or plant fibers, rubbed meticulously over hours, days, or even weeks. The result is a surface so smooth it feels almost warm to the touch, reflecting light with an otherworldly glow. This mastery transformed a raw, unyielding material into objects of immense beauty and spiritual power, demonstrating a profound understanding of material properties and an almost supernatural dedication to craft. Beyond magnetism and jade, the Olmecs demonstrated other challenging craft skills in various hard materials. They carved crystalline quartz, obsidian, and serpentine with a similar precision, producing beads, mirrors, and ceremonial objects. Obsidian, a volcanic glass, can be flaked into razor-sharp edges, but carving it into intricate forms without shattering it requires immense skill and control. Even the basalt used for the colossal heads, while less hard than jade, demanded monumental effort and a precise understanding of how to shape such massive, unyielding rock using only other stones as tools. These crafts were not just about aesthetic beauty. They were about manipulating the very fabric of their world, drawing out hidden properties and forms from raw nature. The broader implications of such advanced material manipulation on perceptions of Olmec technological prowess are profound. For a civilization often described as early or formative, their capabilities shatter our preconceived notions. The ability to identify, understand, and utilize magnetic properties for navigation or alignment, or to sculpt the hardest of stones with such artistry without metal, suggests a society far more sophisticated than traditionally understood. It points to a deep well of empirical knowledge, passed down through generations of artisans and priests, potentially involving specialized guilds or secret traditions. This pushes us to consider whether these unseen powers were understood scientifically or through a spiritual lens. Was their use of lodestone a rudimentary form of geomagnetism, a practical science developed through observation and experimentation? Or was it perceived as a divine gift, a way to tap into the very spirit of the earth, guided by shamans and priests? The debate highlights the intertwined nature of science and spirituality in many ancient cultures. For the Olmecs, the distinction may have been meaningless. A profound understanding of the natural world, whether its magnetic fields or the inherent hardness of jade, could easily have been interpreted as communion with the divine, a sacred knowledge granted by the jaguar gods or the forces of creation. Their advanced crafts could thus be seen as both high technology and deep spirituality, two sides of the same powerful coin, making them truly a civilization that wielded powers we still barely comprehend. Beyond their monumental carvings and the subtle powers revealed in their material manipulation, the Olmecs demonstrated a different kind of mastery. Their ingenuity extended far beyond the earthly realm, reaching into the very fabric of time and space. They were architects not just of stone, but of cycles, observers of the cosmos, and engineers of their environment, operating with an intellectual sophistication that continues to challenge our understanding of early civilizations. The Olmecs left behind compelling evidence of some of the earliest calendrical systems in Mesoamerica, while the famous long count calendar is often associated with the later Maya, its foundational elements. The intricate bar and dot notation and the concept of a cyclical 260-day ritual calendar trace their origins to the Olmec world. Stelae and carved monuments at sites like Tres Zapotes display dates that utilize this sophisticated system, recording specific events and marking the passage of time with astonishing precision. These early glyphs etched into durable stone are not mere markers. They are the intellectual scaffolding of a society deeply invested in ordering its existence within cosmic rhythms. The very notion of counting days in a repeating sequence integrating both sacred and solar cycles, speaks to a profound observational capacity and a need to structure existence far beyond the immediate harvest or a single generation. It suggests an awareness of duration, a commitment to historical record, and a philosophical outlook that saw time as a measurable, predictable force. This temporal mastery was inseparable from their profound understanding of the cosmos. The Olmecs were keen astronomers, their gaze fixed on the celestial dance above. Evidence suggests they meticulously tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and especially Venus, a celestial body of immense significance across Mesoamerican cultures. Solstices and equinoxes, critical for agricultural planning and ceremonial timing, were not merely observed. They were integrated into the very design of their ceremonial centers. The Olmec landscape became a canvas for their astronomical knowledge, aligning architecture with the rising and setting points of key celestial bodies. This was not a passive observation. It was an active engagement with the heavens, transforming transient cosmic events into permanent terrestrial markers. At the heart of this cosmic architecture lies La Venta, one of the most significant Olmec sites where its axial orientation reveals a deliberate and complex alignment with astronomical phenomena. The entire complex, from its massive earthen mound to its plazas and stone monuments, is oriented precisely 8 degrees west of true north. While initially seeming subtle, this precise deviation is far from accidental. It suggests a calculated alignment with a significant celestial event, perhaps the setting of a particular star, or the alignment with a specific day in their nascent calendar. This level of precise planning, executed across immense earthworks, required not just sophisticated observation, but also the means to translate that data into large-scale construction. It implies a detailed understanding of geometry, orientation, and surveying techniques that seem almost anachronistic for a society without metal tools or written mathematical treatises as we know them. The very act of designing an entire ceremonial center to mirror celestial paths speaks to a worldview where the earthly realm was a reflection and extension of the cosmic order. Crucially, the ability to create and utilize such calendrical and astronomical systems rested on a foundation of advanced mathematical concepts. While direct evidence of a fully formed numeral system is scant in the earliest Olmec period, the bar and dot notation, later perfected by the Maya, can be clearly seen in Olmec artifacts. This system, which uses dots for single units and bars for 5, is not just a method of counting, it is a conceptual leap. More astonishing still is the implication of their understanding of the concept of zero. Though often credited to the Maya, the earliest unambiguous representation of zero in the Americas, depicted as a shell glyph, appears on Olmec-influenced stelae. The concept of zero is a profound intellectual abstraction, allowing for positional notation and calculations that extend far beyond simple addition and subtraction. It is a cornerstone of advanced mathematics, enabling the complex astronomical observations and calendrical calculations that define Mesoamerican civilization. The presence of such a sophisticated numerical system hints at a cognitive capacity for abstract thought, a capacity rarely attributed to societies of this early period. Beyond the abstract realm of numbers and stars, the Olmecs demonstrated an equally sophisticated mastery of their immediate, challenging environment. At San Lorenzo, a site renowned for its colossal heads and early urban planning, archaeologists have uncovered an intricate network of water management and drainage systems. This was not merely about diverting floodwaters. It was a highly engineered solution for controlling and channeling water within a major ceremonial center. The most striking examples are the buried basalt pipes, monumental in their own right. Crafted from hollowed-out sections of hard volcanic stone, these pipes formed aqueducts, directing water from springs to ceremonial basins and perhaps even to royal residences. The sheer effort involved in shaping these massive basalt blocks, some weighing several tons, into conduits, then burying them in precise alignments beneath the earth, speaks volumes. It required not only an understanding of hydraulics, but also an immense organizational capacity and a workforce capable of executing such ambitious civil engineering projects without modern machinery. These systems regulated water flow, provided clean water for ritual and daily use, and drained excess, demonstrating a highly pragmatic and intelligent adaptation to their lowland, flood-prone landscape. The scale of their ambition in shaping the earth itself is equally staggering. The construction of their ceremonial platforms and complexes required monumental earth-moving and terracing. Sites like La Venta are dominated by massive earthen mounds, some rising dozens of meters high, built entirely by hand. To construct these pyramids and platforms, millions of cubic meters of earth, clay and sand were excavated, transported, and precisely layered. This was not random piling. It was deliberate, structured construction with different colored clays often used in specific sequences to create vibrant, enduring structures. The precision of the terracing, maintaining stable slopes and levels over vast areas, suggests sophisticated planning and engineering knowledge. The sheer volume of labor required to undertake such projects speaks to a powerful social organization capable of mobilizing thousands of people over extended periods. It was a landscape sculpted by human will, transformed from a natural swampy environment into a meticulously designed sacred space, a testament to an unmatched civil engineering prowess. All these achievements, the calendrical systems, astronomical observations, architectural alignments, mathematical innovations, complex water management, and monumental earth-moving point to an overarching intellectual scaffolding. The Olmecs possessed a conceptual framework that allowed them to integrate diverse forms of knowledge into a cohesive vision for their society. This was not accidental discovery, but the product of a highly organized intellectual class, likely priests or astronomer priests who observed, theorized, planned, and directed these vast undertakings. Their ability to manage resources, coordinate labor, apply abstract mathematical principles to concrete engineering problems, and align their earthly creations with cosmic phenomena suggests a level of abstract thinking and practical application that defies easy categorization. They understood not only how to build colossal structures, but why they should be oriented in specific ways, and when the ceremonial cycles demanded particular actions. This integrated knowledge system, encompassing science, religion, and engineering, allowed them to transform their challenging environment into a cradle of sophisticated civilization. The Olmecs, through their calendars, cosmic alignments, and earthly designs, reveal a profound intellectual depth, a capacity for organized thought and precise execution that remains one of the most compelling and least understood aspects of their remarkable legacy. After centuries of profound innovation, of aligning their world with the cosmos, and of mastering materials in ways still debated today, the Olmec civilization, America's first, began a slow, silent retreat. A people who had engineered massive earthworks, navigated the properties of lodestone, and carved immense basalt into enduring portraits, seemed to gently step back from the centers of their power. This decline, a winding down rather than a catastrophic collapse, presents one of the most enduring mysteries of ancient Mesoamerica. How could a civilization of such profound accomplishment simply fade from its primary stages? Theories abound, each offering a piece of the complex puzzle. One of the most compelling narratives points to environmental shifts, a silent enemy far more insidious than any external foe. The Gulf Coast lowlands, once a fertile cradle for Olmec civilization, were dynamic and volatile. Great rivers like the Coatzacoalcos and Blasillo, which once provided essential arteries for transport, trade, and abundant resources, were also unpredictable. Archaeological evidence suggests that significant river courses began to shift, perhaps slowly over generations, or in more dramatic, sudden changes following intense weather events. Such hydrological changes would have made once fertile floodplains unworkable altered trade routes, and impacted the very agricultural foundation that sustained Olmec cities. A river, shifting its course by even a few kilometers, could render a major ceremonial center isolated, its carefully planned water systems obsolete, and its surrounding agricultural lands less productive. Beyond the silent pressures of a changing environment, internal dynamics within the Olmec society itself may have played a role. Prolonged periods of resource depletion, perhaps exacerbated by environmental stress, could have led to growing internal conflicts. As populations grew, the demand for maize, obsidian, and other vital goods would have intensified, potentially straining the intricate networks that linked their various settlements. We can imagine the burden of maintaining massive public works, like the aqueducts of San Lorenzo or the monumental platforms of La Venta, becoming unsustainable if the labor force or the underlying economic system began to falter. Were there rebellions against the elite, or rivalries between different Olmec centers vying for dwindling resources? While direct evidence of such internal strife is elusive, the common trajectory of many complex societies often includes periods of unrest leading to decentralization or abandonment. External pressures also remain a possibility. Though the Olmecs were seemingly without rivals of comparable complexity in their early florescence, as their influence spread, it's conceivable that emerging neighboring cultures, perhaps those who had assimilated some Olmec knowledge, began to exert pressure on their borders. However, unlike some later civilizations that met violent ends, the Olmec decline appears more gradual, a slow ebbing rather than a sudden conquest. This has led many scholars to favor the theory of assimilation, that the Olmecs did not disappear in the traditional sense, but rather their populations and cultural practices gradually merged with or were absorbed by succeeding cultures in the region. Their people became part of the wider Mesoamerican tapestry, their distinct identity dissolving even as their innovations lived on. The abandonment of major centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta around 900–400 BCE marks this shift, signaling an end to the Olmec as a distinct, dominant entity, but certainly not the end of their story. But the story of the Olmecs did not end with their physical retreat. It transformed. As their centralized power waned, their influence blossomed across Mesoamerica, shaping the civilizations that would follow for millennia. This profound shift in power dynamics saw new cultural centers rise, absorbing and reinterpreting the Olmec legacy. It was not a void left by their departure, but a fertile ground from which new, complex societies would emerge, standing on the shoulders of these forgotten giants. The Olmecs became a ghost in the machine of Mesoamerican development, their presence undeniable in the very fabric of later cultures. Perhaps the most direct and undeniable influence can be traced in the blossoming of Maya civilization. The intricate Olmec glyphs, which we explored as precursors to complex writing systems, clearly laid the groundwork for the sophisticated Maya script. It is in the stylistic elements of their iconography that the Olmecs truly left an indelible mark. The distinctive jaguar motif, a powerful symbol of earthly and underworld power, permeated Maya art and cosmology. The cleft head symbolism, representing agricultural fertility and spiritual insight, continued to appear in Maya carvings and rituals. Even the iconic ball game, central to Maya ritual and political life, finds its earliest known expressions in Olmec contexts. The very forms and artistic conventions, the way figures were depicted, the emphasis on powerful rulers and spiritual intermediaries, all these threads lead directly back to the Olmec. The Maya did not invent their world in a vacuum. They inherited a vast cultural inheritance from their Olmec predecessors, elevating and transforming it into their own unique expressions. The transmission of Olmec cultural and technological innovations was not limited to the Maya. Other early Mesoamerican cultures, like the Zapotec in Oaxaca, also bear witness to the Olmec legacy. The Zapotec, known for their impressive city of Monte Alban, developed their own writing system and calendrical knowledge, But the echoes of Olmec influence in their early ceramics and carved monuments are unmistakable. The bar and dot numerical system, the cornerstone of Mesoamerican mathematics, finds its early antecedents in Olmec examples. The meticulous crafting of jade, a material that required immense skill to work without metal tools, became a prized tradition across the region. Building on the Olmec mastery we saw earlier, the intricate trade networks established by the Olmecs, which distributed materials like obsidian and jade, continued to facilitate cultural exchange long after their decline, acting as conduits for the spread of Olmec ideas and technologies. The enduring presence of Olmec cosmology and ritual practices in the spiritual traditions of subsequent societies is perhaps their most profound legacy. The Olmec worldview, centered on a complex pantheon of deities associated with natural forces, rainfall and fertility, became the spiritual bedrock of Mesoamerica. Their veneration of the jaguar, their understanding of the cosmos as interconnected realms, and their ritualistic practices, including the symbolic act of bloodletting, continued to manifest in the religious life of the Maya, Zapotec, and other cultures. The very concept of divine kingship, where rulers served as intermediaries between the human and supernatural worlds, was powerfully established by the Olmecs and became a defining feature of later Mesoamerican political and religious landscapes. Indeed, the Olmec legacy continued to shape the religious and political landscapes of ancient Mesoamerica for millennia, a silent, pervasive force. Their monumental architecture, while later eclipsed by the scale of Teotihuacan or Palenque, provided the conceptual blueprint for sacred centers. Their artistic canons, especially the use of three-dimensional basalt carving, set a standard that artists across the region would emulate and adapt. The very idea of civilization as a structured society with a ruling elite, a priestly class, and specialized artisans, all supported by a sophisticated agricultural system and bound by a shared cosmology, was an Olmec invention. They articulated the grammar of Mesoamerican civilization, a grammar that later cultures would speak in their own dialects, but always with the Olmec accent still audible. So, while the great Olmec centers may have been abandoned, the people dispersed, and their distinct identity faded into the mists of time. Their achievements echoed for centuries. Their decline was not an end, but a transformation, a diffusion of knowledge and artistry that ignited the fires of subsequent civilizations. The Olmecs, even in their silent retreat, ensured that the ingenuity, spiritual depth, and technological prowess they had cultivated would not be lost, but rather become the very foundation upon which the future of ancient Mesoamerica would be built. This profound influence reminds us that even when a civilization steps back from the stage, its ideas, its art, and its understanding can continue to shape the world long after its physical presence has diminished. They seeded the future, ensuring that their complex vision of the cosmos and human potential would live on, carried forward by cultures that had never known a world without the Olmec's enduring shadow. The Olmec legacy, a profound current shaping the civilizations that followed, draws its power from a source we are only beginning to fully comprehend. It is not merely the transmission of motifs or calendrical systems, but the sheer, undeniable force of their original ingenuity. Across the Gulf Coast lowlands, a society emerged, demonstrating a resourcefulness that challenges the very foundations of how we categorize early human history. They were not just the first, they were a testament to an innate human capacity for problem-solving in an environment that demanded absolute mastery. Their achievements, when viewed as a collective, speak to a people who understood their world with a depth that often eludes our modern perspective. They moved mountains, literally, in the form of basalt boulders for the colossal heads. They carved materials as hard as jade with precision, long before the age of metals. They manipulated the flow of water and mapped the heavens, laying the groundwork for cosmic understanding that would define Mesoamerica for millennia. These were not isolated feats of individual genius, but coordinated efforts, backed by an intellectual framework that allowed for complex planning, sustained labor, and an acute understanding of both natural properties and abstract concepts. The Olmecs stand as a formidable challenge to modern assumptions about primitive societies and the supposed linear progression of technology. We often envision human development as a steady march from crude tools to ever more sophisticated ones, a predictable climb up a single ladder of innovation. But the Olmecs complicate this neat narrative. Their mastery of certain crafts, their apparent grasp of fundamental scientific principles like magnetism, and their monumental architectural feats seem to arrive with startling sophistication, often without obvious antecedents. It is as if they bypassed several rungs on our imagined ladder, reaching directly for solutions that defy our expected timeline. This forces us to question if our framework for technological progress is too narrow, too focused on the inventions we value, rather than recognizing diverse pathways to ingenuity. This is where the philosophical concept of lost knowledge or forgotten techniques becomes so compelling. It is possible, even probable, that some of the methods perfected by the Olmecs were not merely simple or crude, but highly specialized and deeply understood within their cultural context. Perhaps they developed unique compounds for abrasives, or employed techniques of leverage and force application that are simply not recorded in any surviving form we can currently decipher. Their knowledge was practical, experiential, and perhaps passed down through generations of artisans whose secrets died with their decline. We are left with the astonishing results of their work, yet the precise process remains elusive, hinting at a depth of understanding that was specific to their time and place, and now largely lost to us. Yet beneath the specifics of their techniques, there lies a universal human impulse for monumental creation. The Olmecs, like countless cultures across the globe, sought to express complex ideas, spiritual beliefs, and the power of their leaders through art and architecture designed to endure. The towering presence of a colossal head, the intricate symbolism of a jade mask, or the deliberate alignment of a ceremonial center with celestial events are not merely functional constructions. They are declarations. They are the physical manifestation of abstract thought, a desire to leave an indelible mark on the landscape and on the collective memory, to connect the earthly realm with the cosmic. This shared drive speaks to a fundamental aspect of human potential, one that transcends geographical boundaries and technological eras. The Olmec story, therefore, teaches us profound lessons about resilience, adaptation, and problem-solving in challenging environments. Rising from humid, riverine lowlands, they mastered agriculture, controlled water, and built vast ceremonial centers. Their success was not born of ease, but forged in the crucible of a demanding landscape. They adapted their innovations to the resources available, stone, clay, the fertile earth, and transformed them into expressions of culture and power. This reminds us that human ingenuity often shines brightest when confronted with limitations, finding creative solutions where none seem apparent. It underscores the tenacious spirit of humanity, capable of forging civilization even in the most unlikely of places. Ultimately, the Olmecs force us to reconsider the linearity of technological progress and the true depth of human potential. Their existence is a powerful counter-argument to any simplistic view of ancient history. They were not merely a precursor to greater civilizations. In many ways, they were a complete and sophisticated civilization in their own right, achieving pinnacles of design, engineering, and artistic expression that still mystify us. They represent a distinct and exceptional phase of early human problem-solving, whose methods we still struggle to fully grasp, reminding us that true understanding often lies beyond our current frameworks. Our current scientific and archaeological models, though powerful, may not yet possess the lens subtle enough to capture the full spectrum of their accomplishments. The enduring riddle of their unexplained technologies serves as a mirror, reflecting our own limited perceptions of what was truly possible in the ancient world. When we look at a perfectly carved jade artifact or ponder the movement of a 40-ton head, we are not just seeing an ancient object. We are seeing a boundary of our own knowledge, a question mark etched into stone that forces us to acknowledge the vast, unrecorded history of human innovation. The Olmecs challenge us to expand our understanding of history, to accept that brilliance can manifest in unexpected forms, and that the greatest discoveries may lie not in what we expect to find, but in what we are humble enough to admit we do not yet comprehend. Their silence is not emptiness, but a profound invitation to look deeper, to listen more closely, and to continually reevaluate the limits of human achievement.